Facebook Live. And today, let me welcome ELYSE DWORIN. She is the founder and CEO of Elevated Learning Solution, a holistic educational support company in Washington, D.C. area. She is dedicated to fostering independent, self-aware learners by addressing the whole child. She helps children and teenagers develop a deeper connection with their bodies, fostering self-awareness and personalized understanding what works for them. As a parent coach, ELYSE provides parents with wellness resources and helps them learn to support their children at home to help them realize their true potential. My guest, ELYSE DWORIN, is a bachelor and a master's in special education, and she is trained in mindfulness in the classroom and mind and brain education practices. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for
ELYSE.
having me.
Great. So let's start with your introduction. I have given the introduction, but as we go through the session, you can always go into the details, what you do and what strategies you do. Let's start with your early childhood, your own journey learning to manage ADHD, anxiety, and health challenges as you have grown increasingly aware of the interconnectivity of the various parts of the body, the brain, and what we do, what we manage, and how we manage. So, from your early childhood, can you tell us about your early childhood?
Sure. It was, I was a difficult kid. It was a difficult time. I was all of the things that makes having a child with ADHD difficult I encompassed all of it. I had a hard time sitting still. I was very impulsive. I often used my hands. I was loud. All of the things. I was very, very fortunate to have my mother is a speech and language pathologist. And so she was like my in-home executive functioning coach. She was amazing. She taught me so much of what I know. And my father grew up in a military household and ran our home with very clear and strict expectations and rules. And that also helped me to kind of stay reined in. I tried medication for a little bit. It didn't really work well for my body. I had a lot of adverse side effects, and my parents decided they were going to use everything else. So we did behavior plans. My mother took me off of red food dye for a period of my life. And we always believed in using food as medicine. I mean, my family didn't have an issue with medicine, but we always believed that food was medicine as well.
ELYSE, at what age you became aware of ADHD?
Oh, that's a good question. So I was diagnosed as having ADHD when I was 8, but my parents didn't tell me that I had ADHD until I was a senior in college. They didn't want me to feel different. They didn't want me to feel to use it as an excuse. Well, I have ADHD, so I can't do that. And so the way my parents approached it was, your brain just learns differently. This is how your brain learns, and this is what is good for your body. And I take a lot of that, and I use a lot of that with my own students, right, and my own kids. You need to understand your brain and what your brain needs and what your body needs, and it's different for everybody. But yeah, I learned that I had ADHD when I was a senior in high school. And then when I was a freshman in college, getting my bachelor's in elementary and special education, we were assigned a book called Driven to Distraction. Do you know that book? It's about raising children with ADHD. It's by now it's pretty outdated, but I must have called my parents multiple times while I was reading that book, saying, "Oh my God, I feel like I'm reading a book about myself." And so it was
Okay.
the first time that I really started learning about what ADHD was and that I wasn't alone. It was very validating. And that's a piece I really try to talk to parents about as well. You know, I felt that it was very helpful that my parents, in some ways, it was helpful that my parents focused on this is how your brain learns, but not knowing that everything that I was experiencing was normal until I was already in college. That was late for me, right? And so it's really important to like talk to kids and help them understand that like what you're experiencing, this is okay and this is normal and this is just how your brain works, but you're not alone and here's how
Yes.
you understand it. Yeah.
You had the support of your parents, but you were not aware of it yourself
Mhm.
personally that you are having ADHD as a problem. And so you were managing it without knowing it, like it was something normal for you, without having the real awareness about it.
Yeah, it definitely, I felt like it was normal for me, but at the same time, because I didn't know that it was a thing, I always felt like something was wrong with me as a kid, right? Like I could see that my brother who doesn't have ADHD and my friends had less of a difficult time doing some of the things that I struggled with. And so, you know, kids compare themselves to other kids. That's normal. That happens all the time. And so, without understanding why there was that difference, that was hard for me. But yeah, I learned so many strategies growing up. I had to, right? I had to learn to compensate. I had to learn to understand what I needed. Yeah.
Okay. So when you were in college, then you became aware of it, but then you went on to graduate and then you did masters in
Mhm.
special education. Uh,
Mhm.
and you did the masters and then you went into the field of mindfulness and
Mhm.
mind brain education practices. So, can
Mhm.
you elaborate on it? What were these practices and how
Yeah.
are you now using them as a tool to help the young children under your domain? They are under your responsibility in the classroom. How do you do that, all that?
Yeah, so there's a lot of science supporting the connection of the body and the brain and breath work and the effect it has on the brain. Um, Children as a whole, you know, in general, the prefrontal cortex, where executive functioning is, and so organized thinking, logical thinking, it doesn't really form until they're 24 years old. And um, so kids tend to react very emotionally, right? It's the amygdala. Everything goes to the amygdala. Kids, they lash out, they get upset really easily, they get frustrated really easily. And mindfulness, which is basically it's literally what it sounds like, being mindful, tuning in, whether you're tuning into your breath or you're tuning into the feeling of your body on the chair and the sensations of the clothing on your body or your hands on the table, just tuning into concrete feelings. It's calming, but it also helps to develop the prefrontal cortex.
Okay.
And I was fortunate enough to work at a school that trained all of its staff in mindfulness, and I saw firsthand the benefit that it had to all of my students, myself, throughout the day. And that got me really, really diving into wanting to learn more about the mind and the brain and how it connects to the body. Um, and
Elise,
so, yeah.
Elise, you are fortunate to be in a school where they have trained teachers who can
Mm-hmm.
manage these children
Mm-hmm.
as young as 8 years old or maybe little older. But do all the schools in Washington, D.C. area or other states have this kind of facility where the teachers are trained to take care of ADHD or anxiety related issues with children?
No, I mean, but it's so this particular school trained the teachers in mindfulness. I would say, in this area, there's always a mix of teachers that have different training. Some are trained really well and are able to support students with ADHD. Some learn on the job and just through experience. But any teacher and any parent can incorporate mindfulness with their kid. Um, as long as you learn a practice on your own, and I could do a quick mindfulness activity with you right now, and you could take that with you and practice it whenever you like. Teach others. It's not incredibly difficult to do, and so any teacher that wanted to incorporate it into their classroom could.
Okay, so you are now having the opportunity to manage and groom these children who are suffering from ADHD, and you are managing their life, their support system. You are also educating their parents, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yep.
what is this? Company you are the founder and chief executive officer, Elevated Learning Solutions. So, what kind of support you provide under this company?
Sure. So we provide academic support, so tutoring, but we come from a very holistic side of things. So within supporting the academics, we incorporate executive functioning skills, mind body understanding. So we teach kids to tune into their bodies, to understand. Um, to understand, if you're feeling stress, how do you know that that's what you're feeling? How do you identify what's stressing you out? Um, how can we recognize this is coming ahead of time in the future? What strategies work best for you and why? Both academic strategies, social emotional strategies, things like that. So we do all of that direct support with students. We teach parents anything that we're doing with our kids. We inform the parents, and we teach them. We do parent coaching as well as simply just keeping them educated with what we're doing. We provide psychoeducational testing to help families diagnose any learning disabilities or ADHD or things like that. We provide IEP and 504 support. I don't know if that's a thing outside of the United States, but in the United States,
No, I
um,
am not aware of this particular terminology. Can you
mhm.
explain it to me,
Yeah, of
please?
course. So, an IEP is an individual educational plan, and a 504 is it's similar, just a lower level of that. And basically, what it is when a child has a documented learning disability, it is a plan of the specific types of accommodations and supports that they will be given within the classroom setting, and it's a legally binding document. So it's created by the parents and the school with information from doctors, and the teachers have to implement these supports in the classroom, and there usually are additional staff involved to help with that implementation.
Okay, okay.
So
So, in your school, how many students, the young children, are having this ADHD anxiety challenges? How many?
oh, I can't even, I'm not even, I can't give you a number, to be honest. However, I can tell you that that number has been increasing. Whether it's because parents are becoming more aware. I think during the pandemic, parents for the first time got to see their children in a classroom setting when they were learning from home. And so
Right.
more and more parents started seeing that their kids were struggling. I think also the increased use of screens and devices has had an effect on the brains of the developing brains of kids, and that has increased what looks like ADHD. There are also a lot of biological reasons that
Okay,
that is
Elise,
increased.
let's go deeper into the reasons why ADHD creeps into our lives. So
Yeah.
we as parents normally we give tablets to our kids, the cranky ones. We give them the tablets and iPhone and something like this. Okay, so that keeps the mummy
Mhm.
work on her chores, and the baby is sitting in the chair watching a tab. So, how detrimental is that for the child's development, mental development, cognitive
Yeah,
things?
it's
Can you
it's pretty
elaborate on that
detrimental.
particular aspect?
Children should not be on a screen before they're 2 years old, and even at 2 years old, it should not be more than like 30 minutes maximum, and it should be with a parent interacting with them, helping them process what's happening on the screen. Screens provide nonstop stimulation to the brain at a very rapid rate. And so when child's brain is still developing, you're basically training that brain to expect constant neurostimulation, neurofeedback. And so the longer a child spends on a screen, the more their brain requires that feedback. Parents often see that when their child's been on a screen for an extended period of time, when they get off, they're antsy or irritable, and it's because you've basically taken the feedback that the brain is getting, that constant stimulation, and you've just cut it off. And that the brain
Okay.
goes, oh, right. So I mean, even
So
preteens,
brain needs that kind of dopamine effect or kind of a thing which was wired to that tablet. Now suddenly,
mhm.
when the tablet is taken from the child's hand and it's shut off, then suddenly the brain goes into a frenzy mode or what?
Yeah, it kind of like it's kind of like stunned because the stimulation has been taken away. But also with younger kids, they're just, if they're not taught to interact, right? If it's a game, it's one thing, or if it's some activity. But if they're just watching a video or a cartoon on the tablet, and there's no adult there to talk to them about what they're seeing, they're just seeing flashing pictures. You don't know that they're processing the storyline or getting the lessons out of it. And so they're literally just, they might as well just have flashing pictures in front of their head, and it's not healthy. It really changes how their brain develops.
Okay, okay. So I think we have covered most of the things that you are doing in the developmental side of the children. Uh, but ADHD is quite common in adults as well, grown up men
Hmm.
and women. So, how do they cope with ADHD? Are the people aware of it, that it occurs for adults as well? Because normally it is seen that, oh, children are having it, whereas the adults don't see it as a problem. They don't
Right.
see it as a challenge, right?
So that's a really interesting piece of it. So you have ADHD symptoms, which can be created by that developmental brain relationship to a screen, but there's also a biological component. And we're learning more and more about it, which is why very often, people recognize that ADHD tends to be genetic, right? If there's a child who has it, there's probably a parent who has it. However, we're only just starting to learn about where that's coming from and why. And so there are genetic. My brain just stopped working. There are genetic mutations that we're just starting to learn more and more about, right? So, for example, one would be the MTHFR gene mutation, which actually has a role in allowing your body to process out toxins. And if your body is taking in a lot of like processed food or mercury in fish or anything with chemicals in it, it could be that maybe you were sick and you were taking a lot of medication, or maybe here we have, conventional wheat has a lot of pesticides in it, and the pesticides have chemicals. If your body is not letting that go, that can create either ADHD or can exacerbate ADHD. If a child has that, one of the parents probably has that as well. And so there's that piece. And very often I have parents who come to me for support with their child. And the more I start working with them, they start realizing that they should probably get tested. Right. So there's that connection. And so with parents, I think we're very quick to recognize that children have it because children are difficult enough, right? You have a child who's learning, they're developing, they don't have a lot of skills, their prefrontal cortex isn't developed. And so when children that are all, it's already hard enough to raise kids, and when that's way harder because they're having all these other difficulties, it stands out. With an adult, they've made it through most of their lives learning to compensate. And so they're less likely to notice that something's there. But very often when they start learning about their child, they start recognizing it in themselves. Some adults simply just see it. Like they learn about what ADHD is and they're like, oh, wait a minute, something's going on. I want to learn more about this. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it's any less prevalent in adults than it is in children. I think adults just learn how to compensate for it because they've had to. They've made it through most of their life having to be in their body with their brains.
Oh, okay. So this is now people are becoming aware, at least in this part of the world, that the adults also suffer from ADHD, because normally people over here thought that it is only related to children, young adults, not senior people or something, like adults who can go through this life challenge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's,
Yeah.
I don't, excuse me, I don't think it is specific to any one age. Like I said, the longer you go throughout your life without knowing that you have it, the more you learn to compensate because you have to. You have to learn how to get through the day and how to do, what you're responsible for doing. And so as we grow and as we mature, we use our problem solving skills to figure it out. But knowing, I think sometimes when you're an adult who has just figured out that they have ADHD, that provides validation, it provides relief, and then it provides you with a variety of resources, right? You're not just figuring out on your own, right? Because there are so many resources out there, and there are other people who do what I do, right? Who are coaches and support people through those struggles as well.
Okay, great. I think, Elise, we have come to the end of our talk. And
Oh, that was
as a final, sorry?
that was so fast.
We have already 25 minutes, clock 25 minutes on
Yeah.
it. But before we go, uh, can you please sum it up your talk on this very, very important topic, ADHD, anxiety, and mindfulness? From As a coach, you are the head coach, and you are a founder and chief executive officer of the Elevated Learning Solutions. So, as for parents and for the adults, what things they should do, and like what type of exercises, what type of food, and do's and don'ts. Can you just quickly go through
Oh, that sounds
some of the
okay.
tips?
I'll try to summarize that as quickly as possible.
Right.
So taking just maybe 1 to 5 minutes a day of mindful breathing or meditation is fabulous for slowing the brain down and reducing impulsivity, helping calm anxiety. As far as food, I would say trying to eat as naturally as possible. Organic, I think, is always better, but if you can't do organic, the least processed food you can eat, the better. And then in terms of strategies, anytime something is feeling overwhelming to you, break it down into smaller tasks. So the smaller you can make a task, the more manageable it'll feel. Adding visuals whenever possible. So taking anything that's overwhelming your brain and putting it on paper, whether it's a list or a table or something that you can see that makes it feel more concrete and less overwhelming. I mean, that's like a lot of the strategies in a nutshell is using visuals and chunking. Even when it comes to like feelings, just naming them, being able to identify what you're experiencing, where in your body, and what's causing it goes a long way with dealing with the social emotional aspect that's tied in with anxiety and ADD.
Okay, right. So thank you very much, ELYSE DWORIN. You have given us a great insight into ADHD from a different perspective. Probably most of the viewers are not aware of the challenges. You yourself, it's coming from your own journey through this challenge while growing up until up to the age of college. You were not aware of it, and then once you became aware of it, you took it as a challenge, and then you did the masters into special education, and now you are running a company specifically helping the children and adults into this field. Well, it's a great pleasure to have you on Coffee with Gohar, and hope to have another session maybe in a couple of weeks or a month's time,
Oh, that'd
in
be
which
great.
we will go through more details into more discussion on specific issues related to ADHD, anxiety, and mindfulness. Till then, thank you very much. Lots of questions probably will appear on the Facebook for you and me in the next coming day or two, because some people have missed it, some will join it later, and some will as at their leisure time, because this video is going to be available on Facebook for the next 30 days before it is deleted as per the new policy of Facebook. So please bear with me as the questions come in for you, and maybe there are parents, maybe there are adults, teenagers who would like to get some advice from you. Maybe just as a note, you can put in some referral as a book or something, or some YouTube videos they can go to and watch, or specific areas, but maybe there are some
I have a
clients.
number of videos on my Facebook page with some guidance. And
Oh, great.
I've been trying to post more and more with tips and strategies as well.
Oh, great. That's great. So people will have the access to your Facebook page, and they will go through the videos you have provided for the people to go through and get aware of it and how to manage and to have those strategies in place. Great. Thank you very much, Elise. It was a pleasure talking to you,
It was a
and have a
pleasure.
great day, and wish you all the very best in
Thank
your
you.
future
Same to
endeavors.
you. Thank you for having me.
Okay, my pleasure. Thank you. Let's call it a day now, and thank
Mhm.
you very much.